Hey, good afternoon. I'm Craig Setzer, and you're watching Tropical Tracks. This is a live update. It's early November, and we are tracking two hurricanes, one that is making landfall in Belize. We'll talk about that up close, plus the potential for development in the southwest Atlantic. That's right, hurricane season is by no means over. If you like the videos, be sure to click the like button, subscribe, and get the notifications, and be sure to share with your friends and family. Like I always like to do right off the top is talk about the areas where there are current threats and where there aren't threats. So if you just want to know, am I threatened? You can look right away and see, are you threatened right away? And obviously we're in the actual category for Belize right now, as well as the southeast Yucatan coast, because there is a hurricane actually taking place outside of that in the northern Yucatan. Some pretty stormy weather, but no hurricane threats there. And the weather is going to be improving along the Honduran coast as well. That's all from Lisa. The rest of the Gulf, no hurricane threats, as well as the rest of the Caribbean. In fact, if we go to the east coast there, no hurricane threats, but you can see Hurricane Martin as well. That is out in the Atlantic, and that is going to be moving into the North Atlantic. Will be a big ocean low pressure system there, but is not going to be threatening any land interest. Of course, mariners will have to watch out for that. So as soon as the new advisory comes in on Lisa, which I think will probably be pretty close to landfall near Belize City, we'll go right to that. But in the meantime, we'll take a deeper dive and look at what's going on, some more detailed meteorology, and also what we're thinking with this possible tropical development, it may not even be tropical, in the southwest Atlantic. Right now, let's take a deeper dive. So first off, let's talk about Lisa here. This is the radar out of Belize, and the loop is about every 15 minutes, so it kind of jumps there. This was the loop up until about 3:30, and moving to the west there, and you can see the center, the eye coming into view there, and then the latest image, which is coming from Belize there, is this image right here. Let me try to see if there's a later. Okay, there's the latest image. So what's happening is that at Belize City there here comes the eye wall has now passed on through, at least according to this image, which is about 30 minutes old. Remember, when you're doing meteorology, always check the timestamps there, because you don't want to be giving out dated or incorrect information. So likely now that the center is, which is located at, as of about a little after 3:08, was right there. Moving to the west now, and so the weather beginning to improve as the eye wall itself has pushed on to the west. So there may be an hour or two of opportunity to, if needed, move to a safer location, or to make any repairs, anything that has blown around. You really want to be careful for possible power lines that are down or anything like that in this type of situation. You do not want to get injured while a hurricane is in progress, because all the emergency services are going to be kind of stretched thin, and so you just want to be very careful. That's what I always say. The main thing, the first thing to do after a hurricane is be careful. Don't get injured. Don't overstress yourself. Don't require emergency services, because they may not be able to get to you in time. They may not be able to get to you at all, depending on how bad the infrastructure has been damaged. The storm here, Lisa, a relatively small hurricane, and in terms of the big scale of things, that's fortunate that the damage is not going to be widespread. The bad news is that it's coming into one of the more populated portions of Belize there, and the coastal locations, of course, fairly low lying. So there's going to be a pretty good storm surge basically from Belize City and north, and the storm surge is going to come in a little bit later in Belize City, because this area here up to the north, that's where the onshore flow is ongoing. That's where the storm surge is piling up. Of course, the reef helps break the bigger waves from coming in, a very nice protection there, but there are still going to be some waves on top of the storm surge that comes in. And once again, the biggest storm surge is going to be here, but as this whole rotation center moves to the west, then all these winds are likewise going to swing around to the southeast and then the south, and that's really going to try to pile the water in, especially from where the center of the eye is, the center of the storm, which is right there, and see, it's kind of moving in that direction. It's basically going to be Belize City to the north. So really, really be careful over the next few hours here for you folks there that might be watching or are relaying information to your friends and family. If you go out, once again, the rule is be careful because the other half of the eye wall is coming. One of the things we know from the hurricane hunters is the other half of the eye wall is stronger. The eastern half of the eye wall. So the winds are going to be stronger and there could be more damage. You do not want to be trapped outside while that eye wall goes on over. Here's the satellite loop, and unfortunately it's kind of right on the edge there, but the reason I wanted to show this is because there's not a huge moisture tail going into Lisa, so that's good. It's going to be windy. There's still going to be some fast-moving squalls, but there isn't this big feeder band that's wrapping up into Lisa. So once Lisa moves inland tonight and gets further away from the coast, by tomorrow the weather will be improving and improving pretty dramatically. In fact, I think it'll be breezy sunshine and quick-moving showers during the day tomorrow for any recovery efforts that are going to be getting underway. That east flow, you can see it going there. We've had some thunderstorms blowing up over Jamaica as well as in the Cayman Islands, and quite a bit of thunderstorm activity over the northern part of the Yucatan there as Lisa has continued to move on to the west. Let's talk about kind of the bigger picture here, because incredibly, there is a lot to talk about here in November. When I started doing this, I would talk about, let's look at the features that are out here. Well, here's Lisa, first off, right there, you can see. Now, one of the things that kind of jumps out here is that a lot of these features out here have some pretty fast-moving cloud motions because we have a lower latitude jet stream in parts of the northern hemisphere now, because we're getting closer into fall, or more deeply into fall, closer to winter. So we've got these big dips in the jet stream here that are big oscillations up and down. And then we've got some features that are kind of embedded in the flow here. A pretty sharp feature right there. That is going to be our player. It's going to go down there, and that's going to be the thing we're going to be watching for potential development. This right here, this may also contribute to the potential development. I'll show you that in a second. It could become our next low pressure area that tries to transition into a hybrid type of tropical storm. And when I say hybrid, it means it has both tropical and non-tropical characteristics. So tropical characteristics, typically warm core, the warmest and most moist conditions are near the center, as well as the strongest winds are near the center. Non-tropical, it has colder air aloft, colder air on one side of it, and warm air in the front of it, and it almost is where these two air masses are converging into a point. That's where we have like a non-tropical system. So it's possible to get these hybrid where it's a mix of both, where it's a little bit warm core-ish, strong winds near the center, but also kind of a frontal characteristic to it as well, maybe a cold front and warm front associated with it as well. Here is Martin. Martin became a hurricane this morning. They're moving to the northeast. Once again, not going to be a big player out there. And then if it was a different time of year, we'd be watching closely this feature out here, a pretty healthy tropical wave in the middle of the Atlantic. But as you can see, there is some pretty good upper level winds blowing there. This is all now westerly winds that are starting to blow here. So the shear is becoming very, very prohibitive for any tropical wave development. The waves still tend to go to the west, and we're just about getting out of tropical wave season. But that being said, there's still either a monsoon trough or an intertropical convergence zone that'll be out here. So we'll see little flare-ups of thunderstorms and things like that. But once again, the wind shear is development prohibitive out there. And the wind shear really is kind of prohibitive up here as well, except for when we have these low pressure areas that cut off and kind of protect themselves from the wind shear and then devolve and become tropical, something that happens from time to time. All right, so let's kind of break down this one feature here and what the models are showing. This, we're going to start with the European. I explained this yesterday, and what's going on here is we're looking at three different features in the atmosphere. First off, this low kind of reddish area there, that's very low in the atmosphere, and that's kind of the twist or turning of the winds. So whenever that is like a ball, that's kind of usually a low pressure area or winds going around a center. When it's kind of in a string or a line, it's usually associated with a type of front or something like that, where the winds aren't going so much in a circulation, but they're kind of shifting direction. has to go across that line. So that's Lisa right there. You can see it in the European, coming ashore, moving to the west there, emerging in the southern Gulf of Mexico, the far southwest Gulf of Mexico, and then kind of sitting there for a little bit. And if it probably wasn't for the upper level wind shear, we'd have to be paying attention, but then it gets kind of pushed to the south, and that's it. So any chance of development with Lisa down here? Nope, that's not going to happen. The environment is just too unfavorable for that. This other thing we're looking at in this map here, this graphic, these lines, these indicate the mid-level features in the atmosphere. So there's a big high that was kind of moving to the west over time, kept Lisa moving to the west as well. And then out here to the east, this is a big upper level low that develops there. And then this is the crazy thing with this graphic here, is that, remember that other thing I was talking about that was out here? We'll wait till the time frame loops back around here. This is 10 days, so we're kind of stretching our imagination in the model here pretty far out. So here is this other feature here that looks like it tries to form some type of ocean low pressure area, and then it starts to it sits there, and then it looks like it starts to get pulled back to the west around this larger circulation center. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I mean, that's number one. That's beyond. It's in the 4 to 5 day range. We'll have to watch it to see if it forms in the first place, this thing out there, and then if it gets captured and pulled back to the west. I mean, it's happened, but it would be kind of unusual, and not a lot of confidence that solution will be the exact solution right there. All right, so this is Lisa advisory, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, and we saw this yesterday with Lisa, is that as it's coming in, it's been coming in pieces, and so the model or the graphics here haven't been updating quite as quickly. So what we have here is the leftover 2 o'clock advisory that's still on the screen, but as you can see, the crawl on the bottom of the screen has updated with that chime. And the headline here, Lisa about to make landfall near Belize City, right? Yeah, Belize City. So that's the 4 o'clock Central Time, 5 o'clock Eastern Time Zone, and they've got the location about 5 miles south of Belize City. That's the center point. So right now the Belize City is in the eye, per se. Maximum sustained winds, 85 miles an hour, and the pressure, the present movement rather, got it. I know you guys can read this at home as well, right? So just north of due west at 280, 270 is due west, 280 is just a little north of due west at 12 miles an hour. So the speed has slowed down just a little bit there. And the minimum central pressure is, it was 987, 990. So the pressure has come up a little bit. So and that's Martin coming in there, the advisory for Martin starting to come in there. So basically, it's making landfall. Everything that's happening is baked in the cake. And once again, really no big changes here. And as I said earlier, and the thing, of course, to remember is that while the center is over your location, you don't want to go out in it and venture out in it, except to maybe move to a more safe location if you're getting very severe storm surge flooding. But the storm surge flooding is going to be coming in with Lisa as well. You know what, I'm going to wait on that advisory, but in the meantime, we'll go back and finish our discussion about, wait on the graphics to update here, the discussion with what's going on in the this potential development region here. And then once that graphic updates, we'll get right to that. So this once again is the European. So we have this kind of this big upper level low here. That's the Martin discussion coming in there. We have this big upper level low that forms here, and then it does what we call retrograde, which means it moves to the west, because the features in the northern hemisphere are kind of pushing things around here. We've got this what we would call a high amplitude, big deep troughs, big ridges and stuff like that moving around. And this basically, you would say, well, here's the center, right, of this upper level low, and there's maybe some surface stuff trying to form around it, and it's moving back toward Florida. And that time frame in there is about 7 days, so about a week away. So That would be the Tuesday, Wednesday time frame of next week. So, well, what does that mean? Is that the weather going to be really, really bad here? Well, with these hybrid systems, it kind of really depends on how the dry air and the moist air work around the system, because unlike a tropical system where you've kind of got a ball of moisture, a hybrid system has a dry air that is working into the system. Okay, so there's Lisa moving to the west. There's dry air that is across us. Here comes the low pressure area developing and dropping to the south. A lot of dry air over Florida. This is through Saturday now, and then here this thing stalls, and now it starts pulling moisture around it. There we are through Sunday. Now we're into the Monday time frame, and we are still in Florida under a northerly dry wind flow. And then here comes moisture, at least according to the European. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And really, there's so much dry air that kind of gets wrapped up into the system, according to the European. It may just be gusty showers or even some thunderstorms, stuff like that. So once again, too early to get too excited. I know people like to post lots of crazy stuff on Twitter and on the social media platforms because it gets lots of clicks, but we're not in this for clicks. There's Lisa in the GFS model. The GFS model a little bit crazier. It pretty much wipes Lisa out the second it gets into the southern Gulf of Mexico. And then here's this upper level low that also forms and moves back to the west. We'll look at the whole sequence one more time here. The one thing that the GFS has had a problem with is pulling this vorticity, we call it, these red lines, off of South America in southerly flow. And so you get these, what I call spurious, because they're almost like random event little low pressure systems that kind of wrap up around it. The way that the whole presentation of the low level wind field and vorticity looks in this model, especially as we get into the 8, 9, or the 4 or 5 day time frame, so over later in the week into next week, that just looks a little bit unbelievable. It's probably not going to be these little small low pressure areas, but more of kind of this front, occluded front, maybe arcing northward. Let's go through it one more time here, and then we'll kind of begin to wrap things up. Once again, there's the low pressure area developing here. There it is stalled, and then it begins to retrograde back to the northwest there. Looks like it comes right across Florida. Once again, it really depends on the moisture distribution around it, and you can see there that Florida is dry until about Tuesday, and then kind of gets some wet weather, and then if this verifies, it looks like a wet week next week. But once again, it's at odds kind of with the GFS as well. So what's the area of interest? That's it right there that the Hurricane Center outlined. The values, probability values, are low. It's in the 5 day time frame. You can see it's a big area here, and so it's some kind of crazy hybrid feature. Let's go back real quickly, because I said I would show you the whole Lisa advisory. Here it is at 5 o'clock. Winds at 85 miles an hour. Category 1, moving to the west at 12. Located 5 south of Belize City, and the pressure's come up from its lowest value. The pressure kind of bottomed out this morning and then steadied out through the day, which is probably good. It didn't rapidly intensify. That was good. It looked like it was fighting off some shear and some dry air, so that's good. Unfortunately, still going to have impacts, especially the northern half of the eye wall there. So that is through tomorrow and into Friday and Saturday afternoon. And if we weren't in November, I would say, we need to watch this area here, because now we'd have a potential feature in the southern Gulf of Mexico, where the water is still relatively warm, but there's going to be a lot of wind shear. By the way, just let me throw this out, since I like to always talk about my version of the cone. There's the tropical storm winds. You can see they decrease pretty quickly as you move inland. There's the outline of the cone right there, and of course, it doesn't matter if you're in or out of the cone in this case, because you're getting the tropical storm and hurricane conditions even outside of the cone, especially when the storm is this close. So that's through Saturday, but then here it comes back on itself and is forecast to dissipate by Sunday. So that's the latest on what's going on. I think this is going to be our last live update, because we won't have Lisa anymore as a threatening tropical system. Martin's not going to be threatening anybody. And if this thing out there in the Atlantic starts to develop, then maybe we'll start some live tropical tracks again next week. In the meantime, I'll just keep everybody updated on Twitter with what's going on, and if we need to kind of escalate our attention on that there, elevate our attention on that there. In the meantime, have a good day.